Hello everybody, this is Chuck again. As you can see, I have a much better webcam this time, so now you're going to be able to see my presentation so much better. Worked hard on the last one, you couldn't really see it. Thought I did a pretty good job with this one. So today we're going to be talking about the educational merits of video games. This has two sides, it's pretty much split right down the middle. What side you want to view, what side you don't. Personally, my opinion, I think there is a ton of educational merits when it comes to video games, and I'm going to explore some of those with you today. Quick brief history of video games. The first console was released in 1967. It was by a German company who specialized in making televisions. They made this, it only had a total of 12 games, and it's now referred to as the brown box, excuse me. And what this game was is it had a series of tubes that hooked up to a TV, and all the images was little squares that chased each other. That's all the video games really were then. Later, what came out was Pong. Everybody pretty much considers that to be the first real video game. And that came out in 1975, and the Atari console came out later in 1977. The original Pong was just simply something you hooked up to your TV and you moved a little thing back and up and down so that you could hit the ball back and forth between you and your opponent. Nintendo came out 1985 with probably one of the most memorable video game characters of all time, and that's Mario. Nintendo revolutionized video games. When they came out with their system in 1985, they had several games already out with it because it was released in Japan a few years earlier. And nobody had ever seen anything like this. You could do so much more than you could in earlier video games. And from there on, it just progressed into what you see now. And that's just the amazing, amazing video games that they have nowadays. Some interesting facts. 58% of Americans play video games. That is absolutely phenomenal. Almost $21 billion were spent on video games in 2012, and that includes hardware and accessories. So that's video game consoles, controllers, cameras, everything like that. The average age of the game player is 30 years old, and the average game purchaser is 35 years old. 45% of all game players are women. That's something that I didn't even realize. Women over the age of 18 represent a significantly greater portion of the game-playing population than boys 17 or younger. Wow. I think, honestly, that has a lot to do with some of these next facts down here. 51% of US households own at least one dedicated console. Many of those own two. Personally, I own 6. I have my original Nintendo still. I still have my original Sega Genesis. I have my PlayStation 1, my PlayStation 2, my Xbox, and my PlayStation 3. I've got it all. Plus, if you want to count, I've also got my smartphone and my computer. 36% of games are played on smartphones and 25% on wireless devices, which I think is what that number from the women is coming from, because the games that I play, I don't see a 45%. I see maybe 15, and that's it. 91% of the games released last year claimed an ESRB rating of teen or lower, which means that video games are going to be a lot more for families now. They're going to be just an all-around family experience rather than just the regular blood gut shoot-'em-up games that the older generation seems to like so much. Parents are present when games are purchased or rented 89% of the times. So that means parents are definitely watching what their children are renting and buying, so that they're making sure that they're not getting the violent stuff, they're getting the educational games and whatnot like that. Some of the educational games, flight simulators. It's always a fun one. Everybody's always loved flight simulators. They're incredibly educational when it actually comes to pilots, helping them to learn how to fly aircraft. Plus, it's a really fun game to play too. Children's educational games, that's another big one and somewhat obvious too. And I think from the numbers earlier of the smartphones and mobile devices, I think that is actually coming from also children. Because these children, they're grabbing their parents' smartphones, they're grabbing their parents' tablets now, and they're playing these educational games. These games that are helping them learn how to tell what colors are, learn the alphabet, learn how to count. I mean, I had Sesame Street to do that. Now these kids, they can grab a little smartphone or a tablet and they can get onto these games and just play them. And parents are letting them because they understand that these games are teaching them. Now to some that you may not think. Strategy games. Critical thinking. First-person shooters, like Call of Duty. Yes, you're going around, you're shooting people, but you're also learning social skills because you're just talking with people from all around the world. Teamwork, you've got to get together, you've got to go conquer this objective. Role-playing games like Skyrim, something that you're constantly leveling up and bettering yourself. How is that not educational? Level up, make yourself better by setting goals. I think, to me, that's what the role-playing game says. Now, here's a few reasons as to why. Spatial reasoning skills. Children with this skill tend to score higher on EQ tests and be great at geometry. Personally, I sucked at geometry. I'm more of a numbers and science type guy. You start adding shapes into geometry and you lose me. Also for spatial reasoning, video games require players to anticipate movements and anticipate things that are coming on. So that also helps you to critical think. And also, several recent studies have demonstrated an improvement in spatial reasoning skills among both children and adults who regularly play video games. Now, video games and education, I kind of went over this in the last slide, but they offer a promise to help children master everything from basic grammar to complex math. There's all of that stuff out there for kids. I mean, for them to learn, they need to see something that's relevant in their everyday lives. Flashcards and the constant drilling of questions isn't going to help them. Video games is something that they can easily identify with. So if you help them to learn through the video game, then you're helping them immensely. And educators now are increasingly incorporating video games into their classroom. And that's something that I'm going to go over here in a little bit. Collaboration and social skills, that's something that I went over just a little bit too. But you are literally in contact with thousands of people from around the world, and they're all playing video games at the same time. It's not the illusion of what you have of the past, of some lonely kid sitting in front of a computer playing video games. No, these kids they're typing, they're interacting with people, they're working together to solve problems. Critical thinking skills. I mean, that's, you have to, you're anticipating what's coming up. There are so many games now that have puzzles that literally take hours to try and solve because you have to figure out the pattern of things that are happening. So much you have to just think and remember to do, and that increases your brain function, and it helps you think much clearly. And here's one that I kind of knew about, but I didn't realize it was to this extent, and rehabilitation and specific skills. Now, some of these games, they do raise the concern of violence. I know that. but they also raise opportunities for new teaching skills. Some schools are actually using simulations to teach surgeons how to do surgery. We had Operation when I was a kid. We didn't have something that we could um, just start cutting literally somebody open with a computer. We had Operation, and if you touched the size, it scared the crap out of you. Now, video games allow participants to experience novelty, curiosity, and challenge that really they're not going to be able to experience in everyday life. And something I went over also, goal setting. When you start playing a game, you say, okay, well, I want to get this, or I want to make this, or I want to be able to do this. That is simple goal setting. And if you can incorporate that into everyday life, then that's absolutely incredible. And it was a video game that helped you do it. Now, Jonathan Best. I went to high school with him. He was a nerd. So was I, but I was in the closet about my nerdiness. This man has this YouTube video, and I have provided the link on here. I do encourage you to watch it. It is 16 minutes long. However, some of the stuff he goes into is absolutely incredible. He is a teacher in Denver, and he teaches middle school. But how he teaches middle school, he teaches his class like a video game, if you can actually believe it. He has his students make avatars of what their character in the class wants to be. He doesn't give tests. He gives what he calls boss fights. And what the students have to do is they have to prepare themselves to conquer a boss. He has achievement systems, which if you've played video games now, you know what the achievement systems are. He gives achievement to students that gives like bonus to their grades, or he'll buy the class pizza, or he throws a party. It's absolutely incredible what this man has done in his classrooms. So on a final note, I'd just like to say that I really honestly think that video games help students learn so much better. I had Oregon Trail in high school. What did that help me learn? It helped me learn about the Oregon Trail. And we were encouraged to play it, and I loved it. Now kids have so much more they can play. I wish I was a kid now, because I wish I could play video games in school. I hope you have a terrific night.